According to I'm Megan.
And I'm Ciera. For this week's episode, Megan and I are back with another free-for-all book episode because we love talking about books.
We love talking about books.
In another life, we have a podcast solely dedicated to books. But in this life, we have this one.
So we have some different like talking points. Some are like more open-ended. Some are kind of like this or that type of things. So
we really just want to get
pretty open, and we're just gonna see where the episode takes us.
We just want to get into like everyone's book opinions, book hot takes, whatever. So like we have some stuff written down. We also asked you guys on Instagram if you had any like book related things that you wanted to share. I left it pretty open-ended, or tried to at least, so you guys could just like send in anything related to books.
Before we jump into the episode, we always like to start with our weekly spotlights. So I gotta be honest, like life has been pretty just like, I'm kind of just doing the same thing right now with having Vegas and all that. I guess, you know what? I actually do have one. Our little girls' night, our
that was
sister
my
night.
spotlight.
I figured, I was like, as soon as I remembered it, I was like, oh, we did kind of do something out of the norm. So this was actually our dad's idea, because I guess he was like, you guys never get together anymore as like just sisters. And in my head, I was kind of like that's probably true, but I also feel like that doesn't change what we talk about when we're together.
And we do still see each other pretty regularly. It's just like Haley has a baby now. She's married, so like we tend to, when we get together, like see her. Or like we have a dog now, so we've been bringing Vegas like to places. And I guess that was not good enough for our dad, because he was like, he orchestrated this whole girls' night where Haley had Ashton watching Henry, and Megan and I didn't bring Vegas. Our dad was obviously still there, so it was like dad and daughter night, but he was like, the daughters are together.
Yes.
Here.
So we did like a little hot tub night at his house on Friday night, and it was good. Ciera and I have like gone and used his hot tub like a few times, and honestly, it's been hot enough still where I was kind of like, it's not hot tub season.
Which like you would think it's October 1st or 2nd as we're recording this. You would think it would be perfect hot tubbing weather, but this last week is like a last hurrah for summer.
It's like literally, I swear, 90 degrees
it's
outside.
Hot today. It is hot.
And also this
when I've been
weekend,
taking Vegas outside, I'm like, oh my god, you can stay out here, buddy. I'm going inside.
It's 91 right now. Even like this week, we got 88, 85, and then it kind of goes to like mid 70s, and then a little bit colder. And
70s are the perfect weather.
Yeah.
When you have like, I mean, obviously you want to like go swimming, go to a pool, whatever. You want like that 80s, 90s temp, but like on a day-to-day basis, 70s are perfect.
It was also really hot yesterday, and yesterday our dad helped us put together some lattice for our deck, because Vegas liked to go underneath of it, and it was just like he cannot keep going underneath the deck because then we can't get him out. So he helped put that together, and I was just like, thank God you're the one doing this.
It's funny, like Megan and I were outside, like kind of hanging out with him, helping out,
but also I was like,
handing him things.
Really
at one point, Megan's like, "Oof, like this is like getting exhausting," and I'm like, "We're not even the ones doing anything." Our dad's like sweating up a storm, like trying to like push the stakes in the ground and like screw things to the deck. So big thank you to our dad for helping us out with that.
Yeah, those were weekly spotlights.
Got some other news stuff coming up though.
Next 2 weekends, we're going to be busy girls.
Yes, Jonas Brothers concert is in a week. We'll be going there on Saturday. I'm very excited. Have to figure out what my concert outfit will be.
It's on the agenda.
It doesn't. I feel like it's honestly more exciting now. As their concert like tour started, I was like, that was all my TikTok For You page was, and now it's kind of died down a little bit, and so I feel like I'm like excited to like see all that stuff again in person, because I haven't seen it,
Yeah.
all over my For You page.
Also,
anymore.
I'm like, we are literally like, this is gonna be the closest we've ever sat at a concert, I'm pretty sure. So I like don't really like in my head know what it's gonna look like.
I'm like, how close will we be to them? I don't know.
It also makes me nervous, like when you're on like floor level. It's like I'm not like raised up, so I'm just like kind of nervous, but I also like, I don't know.
We're excited though. And then in 2 weeks we'll be going to Cincinnati to see Maggie. Also excited because I took some time off work for that, and so like get some shorter days and an increased vacation time. Get to go to a Bengals game, which hopefully the Bengals will up their playing for us. They're not doing too hot this season.
No, they're not.
So
yeah, there's 3 minutes left and it's still 3-27. So
Have they scored more than 3 points in any of their games?
Yes, there was one game where they only lost by 3 points, and it was like 27-24.
Okay.
And then they won their home white Bengal game. Anyways, Hawkeyes had a strong finish to the game yesterday. That was a fun one to watch. It's always like peak Hawkeye football. If you like don't know, if you've never been subjected to watching how we play, it's like defense and special teams, like they really do their part, and then offense is always just like you're just kind of like rolling your eyes and praying they don't mess up every time they're on the field, because out of our 21 points that we ended up scoring, or however, no, we did pass 25 points actually, because I think Brian Ferentz met that goal. But it's like a majority of the points were from field goals or special teams, or it's like a pick six and not offense. Our quarterback got hurt, so I don't really know. But it was still a fun end to the game because we actually like were doing some things, and a win's a win at the end of the day. So
Hawks are now 4-1. Can't complain about that. And again, in theory, the rest of our schedule, it should be easy, but therefore we should like finish 11-1. But you know, we'll hold our breath on that one, which is also, if I may say, insane because like by that logic, we should go to the Big Ten championship most likely. Mm-hmm. Which I'm like, how?
Because the West Division sucks.
So we'll see. And then Megan and I, we've always toyed with like, oh, like would we go back to the Big Ten championship? I don't know.
I'm always kind of like,
if we're still playing as poorly as we
away.
Are, but then also like if we're playing like, it will be Michigan is who we'd be playing.
Or we'd be playing the college playoff contender.
I know, but then like knowing how poorly we did last time against Michigan,
I know,
and it was arguably a worse Michigan team and a better Hawkeye team, I just don't know if I could handle it.
Like all that driving just for what?
Yeah.
Okay. I have like just, I don't know the best way to organize this. It might just be unorganized chaos, to be honest.
Yeah. Because I just have a list, and
first let's start off with our current reads. We can kind of just like get settled in that first, and then we can dive into other stuff.
And do a little update. So I'm currently reading Book of Night by Holly Black. I'm literally one chapter in, so I have no thoughts on it at this point. But I do want to talk about The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I love that book. I gave it 5 stars, and it felt really good to give it 5 stars because I'm always pretty comfortable giving like an Emily Henry romance book 5 stars. Like they speak to me. But with other authors that I've been reading, I'm just like, I don't know like what it is for romance that like makes me give it a 5 stars anymore. And so I've been like, I don't know. But when I was reading 7-Year Slip, it was like when I first started reading it and like the love interest was introduced, I was just absolutely smitten with him. I was like, I need to keep reading. And then just like as I was reading, I was getting the feeling of like, okay, like I cannot wait to like keep reading this and then finish it so I can give it 5 stars. And so to me, that's like the key. And I also just loved it because in a way that is similar to Emily Henry's books, where it talks about obviously the relationship, but there's like so much more going on in the book besides that. Talked a lot about like self-discovery between the two people, and I loved, if you're unfamiliar with like the premise of The 7-Year Slip, it's like they meet 7 years apart in the same apartment. And so this guy,
it's like the only place, like it's just like the magical apartment.
Yeah, this guy like
randomly you don't know
is subleasing her aunt's apartment over the summer 7 years prior to when she's currently living in it. And, like, the apartment will, like, randomly just, like, send her back 7 years. And then, like, they meet, talk, fall in love, whatever. And so, like, because there's that time switch essence going on, there's, like, stuff that happens within the plot of, like, past and present, like, intertwining that I was like, that is so cool. And so I loved that aspect of it. I enjoyed both the characters, and I liked how at the end of the day, it was like rooting for them to like get back to like finding their passions, and like them supporting each other in doing that, and like almost being the reason for them doing that. And I just thought they're really cute together. So that was my most recent read, and it was a good one.
I am currently reading Recursion by Blake Crouch, and I'm about 25 pages into it. I just started it yesterday. But so far I'm kind of like, I think I could like this, and I am hopefully gonna be invested in the book and not have it take forever for me to read.
She had decided that it was time to give her romance books a hiatus for at least one book.
I think I was like at least like book 4 or 5 straight of like romance, and you know, I just got that book not too long ago. I was like, I should read it before I forget about it. And I enjoyed Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. It's just like, it's challenging because for romance books, like, I get more invested. So then, like, I find, like, I take time out of my day to, like, set aside to do some reading. Versus for other books, I feel like it kind of ends up becoming, like, an end of the night type of thing. And maybe I'm tired at the end of the day, or I don't have that much time that I can dedicate to reading. And then, therefore, it's going to take longer for me to do. If I have a book on my phone, then kind of like no matter what it is, it's always a little bit easier because then like I could pull it up on like my Kindle app. But
The
it's
7-year
a physical book.
That's the other thing of like how much I was enjoying it. I literally took the book outside, like while I was outside of Vegas.
Because Vegas was being annoying, and so like the only thing that would satisfy him was just like walking around outside. So Ciera's like walking around outside, just like
reading my book.
book.
But like I genuinely, because I finished it basically, if not like the entire second half, on like that last day that I read it, pretty much the entire second half. So that's a good sign when you're reading a book and you're like, I must consume this book.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that I read Fourth Wing on here already?
Yes.
Okay. So that's my book update.
As we're recording this, it's October 1st. So Ciera like told me this morning, she's like, it's
threshing day.
It's threshing day, and I was like,
Megan hasn't read it yet. So.
I don't know what that means.
Will say, for whatever reason, I mean, the Fourth Wing fandom goes hard. They have like, they're very active on TikTok, and I don't know how my TikTok knows that I read the book, but they know that I read the book now. And so I'm getting so many like fan edits and stuff of all like the Fourth Wing stuff, which is fine because I loved the book, but I only give it 4 stars, and I'm like, this is how I know that I was like correct in not giving it 5 stars because I'm not nearly as invested as all of you guys. Like, it's fun. I will probably continue the series, but like you guys, you're in it, and like they have like, oh my god, like that is so this character, and I'm like, who? Because there's like a lot of names in that book that I'm like, I don't even know how you remember that character. So that was my little aside for, you know, Fourth Wing, loved it, will continue it, but I was correct in not it being 5 stars for me.
Okay, do we want to talk about like any upcoming books we have on our TBRs that we're kind of thinking will be coming up shortly, or
do you have one top of mind?
I just like, I'm kind of trying to think of like the physical books that I know for sure I want to get to soon. Fourth Wing is probably one of them because technically that was like a book I got for our birthday. And then I also have A Court of Mist and Fury is another one that I also just picked up. So I'm wanting to read it to kind of like see what happened with this series, because like I know I'm on the outs right now of what everyone else thinks of these characters, because like I only have the first book finished. So I feel like those are like the main ones. And then I have the Abby Jimenez Happy Ever After playlist. And I think as far as physical books go, Ciera's like really a lot better about like, she'll try just about anything. And so a lot of times she'll like try different genres where I'm like, I don't know if I maybe would have picked it up, but she picks it up and then reads it. And then like if she doesn't give it a glowing review, then I'm kind of like, okay, well, I'm not going to read it.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few books on our shelves that fall into that category where I'm like not planning on reading it. So yeah.
It's like if there's any book that I give 3 stars or less, like Megan's not reading it, which is fine.
Even if you give it a glowing review, it sometimes takes me a little bit to get to it.
You got to 11/22/63 relatively quickly after I was pushing it on you. For like how daunting of a book it is, I was like, okay. Mom read it like the second after I recommended it to her. So I finished it like end of December, and I was like telling her, I think around New Year's, I was like, you need to read it, and she was like, done. Like,
done, already finished it.
She like read it on like it was an audio book. She gave it 5 stars. So
when you were talking, you were making me think of something, but
I had something on my list related to, we're talking about rating books, so I feel like this is an appropriate time to bring it up, but we can talk about our personal rating systems of everyone. I think most people follow like the 1 through 5 star rating, but everyone has their own personal opinions of like what makes a book a certain star rating. And so I've seen some people say like their average star rating is a 3, and for me, I'm like, my average star rating is a 4 because I feel like I do a pretty good job picking out books that I'm sure that I will most likely enjoy for the most part. And to me, like a 4 star is like, I had a good time, it was fun, I'd recommend it, and like that's all it is. And that's why 4 can be the widest range for me, and like it can be like just barely 4 where I'm like, yeah, it was good.
I do this thing now where I rate books on Goodreads based off of like the first number that I give it. Even if it's like a 3.75, I will like put it down to a 3 just because I feel like in my head, like obviously in my head, cared enough to like bump it down actually to like, oh, it's a 3.75 versus like a 4. So like I'll always like do the 3 and then like write maybe like what I actually rated it in a little blurb sometimes. Because I used to be like, oh, well, it's 3.75. It's closer to a 4. I'll give it a 4. But in my head, it just works better the other way.
Yeah, you're like, it's not quite a 4 though. So like 4 is like, again, just liked it, to like, it was so close to a 5 stars, but like just not quite. And like Megan said, I'll sometimes do like a 4.5 or
I'm
like
more
a 3.5
to do that, like to give like a decimal if it's part of like a series or related, and I want to be able to kind of like compare it to said other book, then I might like adjust my rating that way. Otherwise, like sometimes I get like close to kind of like a 5-star feeling, but not exactly. And so in that sense, sometimes that's how I end up with my 4.5.
And we always say like a 5-star is simply a feeling. Like you loved it for whatever reason. Maybe you're like, I don't even know why I love this book so much. But like you get that feeling where you're reading it and I'm like, I cannot wait to give this book 5 stars. And if I'm questioning it, then I'm like, then it's not 5 stars. Like you have to just like know in your bones. As far as like 3 stars, to me it's like I finished it. You know, there's parts that were good, parts that were bad. Maybe I can see it like more for someone else than for me. But I will never like think about it again.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't probably like actively recommend it to anyone.
Yeah.
So for me, like books that I can think of for that was like Then She Was Gone. I was like, eh.
Or like The Guest List, I remember, sticks out to me. I just read What Happens After Midnight and I gave like a 3.5. Like it's just
These Silent Woods you gave a 3.
Yeah. That's the most 3 of a 3 book I could ever.
Like if you want a true neutral book,
The Silent Woods.
that one.
True neutral. Like what? I'm trying to think of like the neutral good,
Chaotic neutral,
yeah,
all that stuff. We should make
book
like
categories.
Maybe this is like me talking out loud like before we do our graphics and stuff, but we should do that like for a graphic post on our Instagram, like a chaotic good, chaotic neutral.
Could be fun. Could be kind of tricky because I'm like, what exactly does that mean? But we could probably figure it out.
If you guys see that come to fruition, you'll know that that started here. The seed was planted. And then I only give like 3.5s and 4.5s as far as decimal ratings. You get a little bit more creative, but like anything less than like a 3, it's like either a 2 or 1. I've never given a 1.
A 1, I wouldn't be finishing the book. Like that's when I DNF a book. A 2, I only give to books like sometimes it's upon further reflection.
No, I think all of the books that I think in my head now is, oh, I would give them 2 stars. I actually rated them like a 3 when I was done, but now I'm like, they would be 2. And so like the books that I can think of that I finished that I would give 2 stars would be Sharp Objects and 99% Mine.
I would also give The Room a 2 stars.
I didn't read The Room,
Or did I say The Room?
I don't know.
I would give Room 2 stars. But otherwise, like, we're getting to like so low that like we're on the verge of like I'm probably hardly even finishing this book.
Exactly.
I could talk about some of my DNFs because like I don't have any shame in not reading a book if I'm not liking it anymore. She powers through books and I applaud her for that. But it's miserable for me to do that. And I was like, I'd rather just not put myself in a slump. So I wonder if my Goodreads would help me a little bit. I certainly know, like some are coming to mind anyways. Crime and Punishment.
I was shocked when you brought that home. You know why?
Because it's a classic.
It's a classic, and I was like, if either of us were going to like read a classic on our own time, it would be me, because like you said, I'm typically the one that ventures out into other genres, and I'm like, and I wouldn't even read Crime and Punishment.
I just wanted to give it a chance, and I made it like 120 to 150 pages in out of, I don't know, is it 500 pages maybe? Yeah, there were some skinny pages, like tissue paper pages. And like I just really, part of it that's hard is like it was translated, so the character names are really like I think they're Russian, but they're very like I hardly know who we're talking about because this name sounds so similar to this name, and I don't really know what's going on. So that was challenging part number 1, and I kept powering through, and then I just couldn't power through anymore.
It's still sitting in your nightstand now.
Not finish it. I might bring it to Half Price Books.
I was like, one of these days we need to collect, because our bookshelf's getting, it's getting full. I'm sure there's some books that we could part with and earn some moolah in return.
Yeah. I have also tried twice and have gotten not very far both times to read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. It's a sci-fi book. I quite literally cannot tell you what it's about. I swear it's a different language when I read it because I can't make any sense of what the book is saying. And, like, nothing's computing in my head when I'm reading it. So for that reason, I've been unable to finish that book. So, and I gave it to Ashton.
She said, you get rid of it.
I was like, you read this if you want.
We were handing him the books. We're like, and you keep these.
Do not
Don't give them back to us.
I
Three-body problem.
Yeah. Three-body problem. I have it on my TBR still because, like, it is a very highly rated sci-fi book. And I believe, like, if it's not already, it's being made into an adaptation of some sort. And it sounds interesting in theory, but I think part of it that's tricky right now is it's also translated from a different language. And so a lot of the names are hard for me to keep straight who is who. And I kept reading it or trying to read it when I was, like, falling asleep. So I got, like, 30 pages in, but, like, had no idea what was being said or happening in the book. So it'd have to be one where I just, like, I came back to it and restart and am in the right headspace for it. I have also DNF'd. Breathless was another one that I was thinking of. I got, honestly, like, probably over 100 pages into that book. It was a book of the month book a while ago, and it's about, like, climbing, and, like, it's a murder mystery kind of book. And I wouldn't say I wouldn't return to it. And it more so just got to a point where I was like, I wasn't hating the book, but I just, like, wasn't interested in continuing it at that point. So those are for sure some DNFs that I recall off the top of my head. There's probably been more, but I do not remember.
Okay. Do you have any categories on your notes of what you want to talk about? Otherwise,
we could do at most anticipated upcoming releases.
Iron Flame, I think, is supposed to be coming out in November. So that's one that I for sure know.
Like, my most anticipated reads are honestly, like, books coming out next year. Probably more so than, like,
Swift
ones
and
coming
Saddled comes out in April of next year.
Funny Story by Emily Henry comes out sometime next year. Abby Jimenez, I was going to look at the title, has a new book coming out called Just for the Summer. That's coming out next spring. Caught Up is by Liz Tomford. It's going to be Windy City number 3. It comes out this month, actually. I just saw October 10th. So that's one that I'm probably going to be interested in reading because I enjoyed The Right Move. I haven't read the other one, but people don't give that one as good of a review, so I don't know that I care to go read that one. Other ones,
I can't even, like, think of any other books. You know what's interesting is that I don't know if this is, like, a thing in the winter of, like, people, like, releasing a ton of Christmas time, like, holiday rom-coms. I'm like, averse to
I do not want to read a
holiday-themed rom-coms.
Or even, like, the, like, Halloween-themed one. I don't think I want a themed rom-com. I just want it to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people love the vibes of their books to match whatever season they're in. So it's like if it's Christmas time, they want to cozy up with a good, like, Christmas holiday rom-com. And I'm like, I have no desire to do that. Like, I don't know why, but, like, thinking about reading about Christmas time, I'm like, no.
I know. I'm like, you would think it'd be, like, perfect. It matches the weather, matches the vibes. Like, they're in Christmas, like, a small little Christmas town, like a Hallmark movie. But I'm not really, like, a Hallmark movie person anyways. So I don't really, like, want that in a book either. Okay. For TBR stuff, like, that's all I had, at least, like, on my stuff that I've recently added.
I have another thing that's kind of semi-related to what we were just talking about. With content that you watch, whether it's, like, TV shows, movies, podcasts, whatever, how does, like, the book content that you consume compare to other types of content? Because I feel like in theory you would think, oh, if you, like, read or if you, like, read romances, maybe you like to watch, like, rom-coms, maybe you like to watch, like, those reality, like, Love Island, Bachelor shows. But I feel like for us and probably for a lot of people, like, there's different, like, we don't have a ton of crossover in the different content that we consume.
I feel like I really get most of my like romance genre, if that's what you want to say. Like that's my like reading. That's what I do with reading. And then honestly, I don't watch a lot of rom-com movies at all. I just don't usually seek them out. I prefer action or adventure, mystery, true crime. Like if we're talking like TV shows, that's kind of like where I'll watch stuff like that. Certainly like a rom-com here and there. Like I'll watch anything, at least a little bit probably. And then in terms of like YouTube has been book heavy, honestly. And then otherwise like vlogs and lifestyle stuff usually. And
who are your favorite booktubers?
My most consistently watched would probably be Sarah Crowley. I do watch quite a bit of Destiny and Haley Pham. And
see, I watch them three for like the book recommendations. I watch Jack Edwards because I think he's funny. But I'm like,
I've
and he likes
started
talking
watching
about
him
books.
less just because like I quite literally don't know the books he's talking about.
I know. That's like the thing with his books is I'm like, we don't have the same taste. But I still like his content.
Goodreads.
What?
I follow him on Goodreads.
I will say I did watch his video that he just posted where he like turned his library room into like an indie bookstore, which was, you know, a pretty entertaining video. But he did have This Is How You Win the Time War in that video, and he said like, you know, he liked it, whatever. And I'm like, I need to freaking read this book. Like for whatever reason, like I'm just being called to read this book, even though I'm like, no, it's like got like less than 4-star average on Goodreads, but it's short and I like the cover. And like you said, I could read it potentially like in a Barnes & Noble or something. I don't even have to buy it unless I want to. But I'm like, I need to read this book. And since I like the 7-Year Slip, maybe I like a little time.
What's it about?
Bending.
I don't even know what.
As far as I can tell, there's like 2 characters who I think are just like known as Red and Blue or something. And there's some like time war going on where they like are leaving each other letters, and that's how they're communicating, but they aren't ever actually like meeting. Is like all I know.
Okay. My next little section is kind of more of like a this or that thing. We can go on tangents if we feel so called, but bookmark or no bookmark?
See, I had, because I was looking at this or that stuff as well. So I had other stuff as well related to like how you mark your pages. First of all, for me, no bookmark.
I go back and forth. I feel like recently I actually have been using a bookmark, but for a very long time I was just like not using a bookmark, and I'd like go put it in like what page I finished on Goodreads. But I have these Barnes & Noble bookmarks one way or another, and so I've been using them.
I don't even have any bookmarks.
I have one you could borrow if you wanted.
Anyways, so I usually use Goodreads, or like I'll just remember what chapter I ended on, because I'm usually someone who will pause at a chapter if I can. Some other options.
Dog ear.
I hate when people dog ear their books. It
pains me.
Drives me insane. Propping it open, where you just flip it upside down, come back.
I'll do that sometimes, like if
I'll do it to hold my place for like 5 minutes, but I'm not leaving it there.
Yeah, I don't want it to mess my book up. Some people like Sarah Crowley like always has like a pen when she's like annotating and stuff, I feel like. So I feel like she's always using like a pen to bookmark her spot. Otherwise,
for like hardcovers, if it has a dust jacket on it, that's another thing is like people are like, do you take the dust jacket off or do you leave it? I do hate the dust jacket. Like when I'm reading, it's annoying.
What are you calling it?
A dust jacket.
Didn't sound like you were saying that.
But I use it as a bookmark when I am reading a hardcover book.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's like within the first half, I'll use the first flap.
I taught you how to do that.
And then if I get to the second half,
because I remember you you were stretching it far,
and you're like,
for like Project Homie or something.
Back one.
And I was like, you should switch to the other one.
I was like, smart. So I do that now.
I honestly like don't have a whole lot of hardcover books that I read, because I guess Fourth Wing, we just got that one. It's hardcover. I try to if I can. I like don't like to buy hardcover, but there's some things where it's like, okay, good luck waiting for that to come out in paperback. So it is what it is.
And then once you like make a commitment, if something's a series, then you have to like commit to the bit for that series. So I got the Inheritance games in hardcover. That's like the beginning of my beginning of my book journey, and
Didn't have any thoughts.
And so I bought, I think it was only in hardcover at that point, so I bought it in hardcover.
And then one of the books, like, I swear came out in like the opposite, and then it's like you had to wait. I don't know, maybe I'm not remembering right.
I don't think that would be the case, because usually if it comes out in hardcover, that comes out first.
A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is one that we have like a mixed shelf.
Yeah.
Because it
I think
came
it's
out
because
originally in paperback.
you bought it in paperback, and it had been out for a while, so I think that
they realized it was a big hit, so now they're gonna make it come out in hardcover.
And you're like, well, I need the next book in the series, and so you just bought it without waiting.
Which I don't particularly regret, but it's like they do this to make us pay more.
But then I made the mental note for Emily Henry's books, since I have all of them in paperback, and I like to display them together. I don't like when there's a mix and match of hardcover and paperback, so I still have not bought a physical version of Happy Place. I'm waiting until it comes out in paperback, which I've seen some people saying like it's just like not going to, which I'm like, no, it will. I think
it needs to.
Don't tell me it's not.
Why wouldn't it?
I don't know.
That's bothersome. Next, this or that. I have some more. Whoever wants to go. Annotating or no annotating?
I don't annotate, mostly because I think it would stress me out.
I don't annotate because when I'm reading, I just want to be like, no thoughts. I don't want to like, I know people who annotate like don't do it to like take notes. Like they just are like, oh, I loved this line and I want to be able to like come back to it. But I just have never wanted to do that. I don't do sticky notes.
I'd also be like low-key self-conscious if I like let someone borrow like an annotated book and they're like, why'd they underline that?
True.
But I've just personally never felt the need to.
It's like, while I own this book and it is mine, I don't want to like make it mine. I just want it to be like in pristine condition as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. But more power to the people that like to do that, because it takes work. I feel like, because it's mostly booktubers that we see do that, obviously. And I feel like, I'm not saying they do this like for the content, but I feel like it does level up their content.
Yeah.
Because you can see them like physically doing something as opposed to just reading. Because when we post reading videos, we're just clips of us reading, clips of us talking,
breathing.
You know, breathing. Sped up 20 times. So it allows more visual interest into their videos if they do that.
Which, fair enough.
Fair enough. Let me see if I have another this or that thing for music when reading, yes or no?
I really don't prefer it. I sometimes like a little bit, sometimes in the morning before work, if I'm like going to work out, and I'll do like the hot tub before I shower. If I'm reading my book on my phone and I like actually get around to like deciding to read, I usually have noticed I don't stop my music, but I might like turn it down a little bit. But
you don't like match your music to the vibe of whatever book.
No, I tried doing that a little bit actually with Red Queen. For whatever reason, I think it was like I had just seen Sarah Crowley like did that in one of her videos, and I was like, let me give it a try, because it was like my first fantasy book, and I was like, we'll just see what happens. And it was just like really distracting for me, so it didn't last very long.
Yeah, I don't listen to music when I'm reading. It's not so much that like a distraction for me, but because like we sit in the living room, we read with the TV on.
I was just gonna say we do that, yeah.
But it's more so like how well am I able to like zone things out, and I can zone out the TV pretty well when I'm reading. But I feel like if I have music just like in my ears, then it's gonna be confusing. Especially when it's like the music has like such active words that they're saying.
It's also
and
like if it's a song that I know, then like I'm actively like singing the song in my head or something, getting distracted, versus like TV does not do that. So for us, no music with reading. Okay. Barnes & Noble or indie bookstores? This is tricky, because it's like I've really had like this newfound appreciation for some of the indie bookstores that we've gone to recently. I feel like what's nice is like you always know what you're getting when you go to Barnes & Noble. Mm-hmm. It's always like same kind of setup, same vibe. You know that you're going to have like all the options. but we have been trying to go to a few more independent bookstores because, like, as much as it's nice to have, like, the Barnes & Noble, like, everything's the same, you know what you're going to get, a lot of these independent bookstores are, like, more unique and different things going on, or, like, they have a little bit more style, pizzazz in some of them, and so that's been fun to see.
I think it's fun to, like, visit both places. Right now, since I have, like, a lot more Barnes & Noble gift cards, I'm more inclined to purchase something from Barnes & Noble's because then I'm not actually spending my money on it. But yeah, we've been going to some more independent bookstores. Like Megan said, it's been fun, especially, like, if you're going for, like, a really popular book, then they're likely to still have it.
Yeah.
So I know when I got, like, Red Rising and 7 Days in June at Beaverdale Books a couple months ago, those were, like, pretty popular books, and so, like, when I saw them, it wasn't a surprise. You just, like, can't get too niche, I feel like, when you go in there.
How about, are you for rereading books, or do you feel like it's new books all the way?
I am predominantly team new books all the way. If any, like, there are a couple books, though, that I would like to reread, which then gets into another thing that I have written on my list of, like, your holy trinity of books. Like, what would you say are your holy trinity? I would love to reread Beach Read because I've only read it once. I can't think of a single book that I've reread. And so Beach Read is at the top of my reread list.
I will say, having only just reread a book for, like, the first time not too long ago, like, over the summer, I reread Beach Read. And it kind of was, like, it made me think, like, I should reread some other books, like, more often. Like, I should do it more often just to, like, revisit some of those books that, like, gave me those, like, probably more so 5-star feelings, but there's a couple 4 stars too where I'm sure I would enjoy reading them again as well. I feel like Emily Henry's books, like, are really rereadable, because if I were to, like, reread another book, I feel like the next one I would do would be Book Lovers, because I would honestly do Happy Place because, like, that was my next favorite Emily Henry book, but I just read Happy Place for the first time over the summer. I don't need to reread it yet. So Book Lovers, it's been a little bit, like, longer, so I would be interested to go and reread that and to see if any of my thoughts on it have changed at all or anything like that.
I'd also love to reread Project Hail Mary.
Yes.
Just because, like, I love the character so much.
There's multiple times we've gone back just to, like, especially if someone we know is reading it, like Maggie was reading it at one point, and so, like, she would, like, put in Goodreads where she was at, and, like, Ciera and I would go, like,
look in the
check
book.
out what part she was at. It's just like, ugh.
We'd, like, scream, like, just reading lines again. So I'm like, clearly if I'm that excited, just, like, rereading a couple of lines, like, I just need to reread the book. Which gets me into, we've mentioned 2 of my 3 Holy Trinity books that I've decided. My Holy Trinity at this point in time is 11/22/63, Project Hail Mary, and Beach Read.
I would say, Project Hail Mary is also going to be one of mine. Maybe, if I'm not copying you exactly, I could do Happy Place instead of Beach Read. And
There's another book that just really spoke to you.
what's a book you think, like, this is Megan's book? Any ideas?
I don't know. I can't decide your Holy Trinity.
I'll have to think on it.
We'll let you sit on that. We'll keep going though. What is your ideal chapter length?
Literally, like, 5 to 10 pages.
That's
The shorter the better.
I pretty much every time I enter a new chapter in a book, the first thing I do is flip to see how many pages. I'm like, what am I getting myself into?
What's the vibe of this book?
Especially when I'm, like, trying to, like, wind it down.
Honestly, love theoretically, like, kind of long chapters, like 20-page chapters. I was like, this is a little too much. My book now, I saw at one point, I was flipping through trying to find the chapters, and I was like, where are the chapters? It's like, it'll split, at least right now, what I'm noticing it does. It'll, like, it has one person's name, and then, like, we're in one time period, and then, like, a few pages later, it's, like, a different person's name, but not, like, a full new chapter. It's kind of like a page break, and then a different time period. But then when I flipped through later, like, towards the end of the book, I saw it said something like chapter 5. So I was like, oh, so if there's chapters, they're freaking gigantic.
Stephen King does something similar where there's, like, 3 ways he breaks up his books, at least for, like, 11/22/63, since it was a freaking massive book. It was parts, and then within the parts there were chapters, and within the chapters he, like, breaks down, like, numbered sections of his book. So it's like with that, I was like just partly like, I'm between section 2 and 3 in chapter 5 or whatever. But I love when you're reading a book and there's like natural stopping points more frequently, because like if it's shorter, it motivates me to read more, because if I'm like getting ready to like wind down, I'm like, okay, this next chapter is 20 pages, like I'm not reading that right now. Versus if I have like 4 like 5-page chapters, I'll be like, I'll just read the next one quick, and I'm like, I could read 5 more pages,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden I've read those same 20 pages, but I read it versus having not deciding to read it initially.
I love short chapters.
It's probably like, from a writing perspective though, it's probably difficult to like feasibly do that.
What to you makes up a good vacation book?
I think first of all, it depends on what the vacation is.
Whenever I see someone on a beach vacation and they're reading like a murder mystery, I kind of am like, this is not the vibe.
You read Silent Patient at the beach.
I know, but it's like, now I feel like I would never.
Do you think it took away from your reading experience though?
No, I just feel like you need a beach setting at a beach.
Okay, let's say like, are we only talking about beach vacations?
In my mind, that's what I go to, but I guess in theory,
I do think whatever book I am deciding to bring with me on vacation, I would typically most likely bring a romance that's like light, easy read, probably in like a summer setting. But I could see like, if you also just like want to bring something like fast paced and fun, I could see how a thriller would be like a good beach read. So I don't know.
What is your favorite reading setup?
I had that written down on my thing too.
Really? I thought that was a good question.
My ideal reading setup is sitting in my room, my lamp turned on, my lights off. You would think that I would say like having a Coke with me. I don't need like a drink or anything to keep me occupied. I wouldn't complain if I had a Coke with me, but I don't need one. I don't know. That's pretty much it. Cuddled up in my blankets, vibing out.
I might say my reading corner, which I haven't had the opportunity to use a whole lot since getting Vegas. Because like at night, I'll just like read in my bed. I feel like it's easier. But my reading chair, having now had it for a little bit and having used that reading corner, I'd recommend it. It's from Amazon. I don't know the name, and I don't know if it's linked anywhere, but I'd recommend it. As much as I love like reading on the beach, there's some challenges with that. You're not always the most comfortable. Sometimes it's like windy or it's too bright, and then you're just like it's not the best reading setup. It's not the most relaxing. You're having to like think way too hard about like the situation. And then I'll read on the couch plenty, but I feel like ideally I like being just like in my room and it's nice and quiet.
I agree. Next one on my list, standalone versus series.
You know what I really love? I love standalones that are like interconnected in a series, but that don't need to be like a series. That's probably like my favorite thing. Like, it's why like with Done and Dusted, I'm so excited for like I don't remember, something in Saddled. What's it called?
Swift and Saddled.
Swift and Saddled. Like, I love that. That's why like I'm excited for the next book by Liz Tomford. I just like really, really like books like that, because then if there's ones that aren't as interesting to you or you're not so sure about something in the plot, like you've got other options. I honestly feel like maybe I just haven't found like a series that like really, really is like my series, but like a series can be kind of daunting, and more often than not, like I'm just looking for a standalone.
And I think that what some people like love about series is partly what turns me off from them. Like, here, I love a trilogy. I can commit to 3 books if I'm enjoying it. You know, it's enough time in the world, but after a certain point, like I just don't want to be in that world anymore, and like I want to read other stuff. So I typically read mostly standalones, and like I like when the story's wrapped up in a nice little bow and like it is done. Set it off. Set it off to the side. We're moving on. I do like the interconnected series because it still has that finality of like this whole thing is wrapped up and it's done.
But you can enter that world again.
But you can go back in like that
situation.
same setting, meet these potentially like other characters that you've met before, but like it's their story now. You don't have to worry about the stuff that happened in the first book. And it's like still a new story, but within the same universe, which can be nice if you enjoyed spending time in that world.
I feel like what's hard is like, I'm thinking of like some of the series that we have read, like the trilogies mostly. Like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I really did thoroughly enjoy that series. And like, I don't want to, like, there's not really anything I didn't like about it, but it's just like, it's a lot more daunting to like recommend something and be like, this is a whole 3 books. But it's like, I just feel like my heart belongs with standalones, honestly. Or like the Inheritance games, it's kind of like, I enjoyed that series, but like, I feel like I don't really remember that. There's almost like so much more going on in
like if you ask me
series.
to separate out what happens in the books, I could not do that.
No.
I can barely even tell you
I
what
don't remember.
happens.
It's just the vibe.
It was a good series. Like I would recommend it, but don't ask me.
And then
like,
also now that we have
questions.
like the Brothers Hawthorne, I haven't seen like great reviews on that. I kind of sometimes wonder if like then you just kind of like get stuck in that world a little too long and you're trying to like make more happen.
Now I'm like
with
iffy
it.
about if I want to read that or not. I've seen people have mixed reviews about it.
Yeah.
But then you also have like ACOTAR is in Throne of Glass. Those are long series.
I know.
So it's like
and it's
daunting.
It is daunting.
And you've already like, you've started your path.
Like what's going to be hard is I feel like the second book is going to like not
really
make or break the
in.
series, but it's going to be like I'm either going to be determined to finish this entire series now, or it's going to end up being like I have no idea when I'm going to get around to finishing the series.
And then you just have 2 books
in
the series.
So that's kind of where I get nervous.
Okay, next one on my list. Let's say we have someone who has not read. We have listeners who currently don't read. What is our recommendation for getting them into reading if they want to? That can be like specific book recommendations, genres they should try out, other tips.
I feel like the best place to start is probably like if you have been seeing like specific books being talked about like a lot, I think it's worth like just kind of like seeing what the hype is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's where we kind of entered in a little bit. But it's just like when you're on the outside of like you're like not a reader and then other people who are like they are readers, you're kind of like, what is like everyone talking about this book for? And so I feel like it's at least like motivating enough to like get involved. And if it has a lot of hype, it could be for a good reason. You could be like, holy cow, like this is why everyone was hyping it up so much. And if it's not for you, then you can always like try again with something else or do your own little search now that you've kind of dipped your toes in the water.
Mm-hmm. I do think that if you have someone in your life who does read quite a bit, asking them like what is a book that you think I would like would be a good starting point, because obviously they're going to know you more than we know you and be able to provide more specific recommendations. I also think it's worth like trying out different genres, because I would say like initially like what I was at least seeking out was not what I usually read now. I was like, oh, like I'll do some Agatha Christie like mystery, because I was taking my content that I consume in other forms of media like TV shows, movies. I was like, I like mysteries and thrillers and all that stuff, so that's going to be what I'm going to try and read when I start my reading journey. And I still like those books, but I would say it's not what I most read at this point in time, because I was like, oh, I read this romance and I liked it, and I read like this other book and I liked it. So you have to kind of have to like poke around the different genres and see like what sticks.
Okay, I don't have any more of this or that. I was gonna go to our Instagram and kind of like look at people's thoughts. Did you have any more of this or that stuff?
Not necessarily this, that stuff. Make sure you keep thinking of your third Holy Trinity book.
Okay, I'll try to remember. So we just asked for basically anything from you guys.
Oh, I have another this or that. Plot-driven versus character-driven books.
Both. I feel like I need like plot I need
I do
something to
too.
be happening, because otherwise at the end of the day I'm like, what am I reading this for?
If I'm reading a book and it's been like 100 pages and I can't tell you like what has physically occurred, as in like what has transpired, then I'm like, what is going on?
That's why I really like struggled to give a glowing review of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, even though everyone loved that book. I just was kind of like,
I did like that book.
I was just more kind of like, what am I reading this for? Like, you're just like following the journey, and I was like, to what end? And
See, I feel like that's not, I think it was both character driven and plot driven for sure, but there was stuff that happened in
I
the
know.
book.
It just, I don't know.
Like, to me, a very plot driven book was when I read A Gentleman in Moscow, because I had told you like physically what happened in that book. It's that this guy like lives in a hotel, or it was character driven. If I told you what physically happened in that book, it's basically this guy like lives in a hotel for like the rest of his life because he's put in house arrest, and like that's mostly it. And the rest of it's just like small little encounters that happen throughout the rest of his life. And some people love that, which is why they, seek out character driven stories.
Mm-hmm.
I need something like, I like my character driven plot points within a largely plot driven book. Like, I love some like introspection, self-discovery, and all of that, so long as it happens in the background of something actually happening in the book.
Okay. Now on to, I don't know, these are hot takes or what, but this person said that they read the ending first. I cannot.
Why would you ever do that?
I can't even
cover it up.
Like, if I'm like even on like the end of a chapter page, I'm like, I know my eyes like trying to like look down. I'm like,
it's like when you're reading and your eyes jump.
I cannot read the ending first. I will not do that. Colleen Hoover, there's a couple I've seen. One says she's overrated. One said she's only good when you're first reading.
I saw that when I was looking at stuff. And I had like a take, because I had talking about underrated versus overrated books as something we could talk about. And I think that a lot of people's issue is that Colleen Hoover's books are rated so highly, and people who are like, seasoned readers are like, that's like, how is that even possible? Mm-hmm. And I think it's because she's attracts so many new readers that, like, think about everyone when they first read a book for the first time again and they like it, they're like 5 stars.
Yeah.
So like that is Colleen Hoover 99% of the time, is that she attracts these new readers.
And it's kind of like, especially if you're like going like, you haven't read a book in years, and all of a sudden you find yourself finishing a book within like a week, let's say, and you're like, I never would have thought that I could do that. So like, this must have been an amazing book. Like, because her books are so fast to read. So I feel like when you first start reading again, that's what you have, is like, this has to be like a 5-star then. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not even trying, like, I've got some Colleen Hoover books, like, most of them I've given 4 or 5 stars. If she came out with
another book, like, I'd probably pick it up too if it sounded interesting.
But like, now having read other books, I can see like, oh, I actually prefer like this to like my romance books, and like that's a 5-star to me, mm-hmm. versus what I thought was 5 stars. It's not 5 stars anymore.
Yeah.
And so like, as far as underrated versus overrated for Colleen Hoover,
I feel like you gotta give her credit where credit's due.
Probably overrated, like in the grand scheme of just books and romance and all that stuff. But like, for a new reader, like, she is the perfect gateway. Like, mm-hmm. She was our gateway to romance.
Right.
We wouldn't be here without her. So,
here's a good one. Reading multiple books at the same time, yes or no?
For me, no.
For me, usually no, but I have actually done it before, and it's not as confusing as I thought it would have been. I feel like I was mostly doing it where I'd have like one book that was like heftier to get through, like maybe physical, and then I like needed something on my Kindle as like my escapism still, because I was trying to avoid reading stuff. I can't even remember which specifically, like which books I was doing that with.
Well, Crime and Punishment, you were doing that.
Oh, and then I DNF'd that book.
So Megan's gonna DNF a book when she starts doing a dual read, and then she's like,
I'm like, I'd rather be reading something else.
I just feel like I get too, I'm either like, I'm too invested in the one book that I am reading that I want to finish it and I don't have time for another book, or it's like the opposite where I'm like, I need to get through this, like no distractions.
Mm-hmm. I think part of it too is like, for me, I like being able to like check off a book and like get another book read on Goodreads, and so the easiest way for me to do that is just like to read one and then check it off, and then read another and check it off.
What would you say is your like ideal length of time? Like, I can finish this book in this many days.
My ideal or like what I usually do?
Either.
I feel like if I am finishing a book in a week, I'm usually pretty pleased with that.
I agree.
Sometimes
Given enough
not
time,
happening.
before we got a dog, I could finish a book in 3 days.
Yeah.
But now we've extended that out.
Yeah.
Even a week is hard. 7-Year Slip, though, I read in like 3 days. So that's, again, gotta shout it out. What for you, like, if you can think of underrated versus overrated books, what to you is like an overrated book? We'll start there.
Tomorrow.
That's fair.
Even like, I almost want to say ACOTAR, just like given I certainly didn't think it was like 5 stars at least from the get-go, but I'm also like, I'm hesitant to say that because I know everyone says the second book is the best book, so I'm like, I feel like I'm being held hostage or something. So maybe ACOTAR, I don't know. What's like another like really hyped book that I feel like I read not that long ago? Maybe like Goodreads, I have to pull you up. If you have any in your head that you were thinking of.
I don't want to say like Fourth Wing is overrated because I feel like I still thoroughly enjoyed it and I can see why people loved it. But to me, like in comparison to like all the other books that I've read that I've like given 4 stars, it's pretty on par with just like, yeah, it was good. Like I liked it. And like I'm not quite to the level.
Room.
Oh, yeah.
Room is the most overrated book I've ever read in my life. Because they made it a freaking movie. The movie's probably better than the book, honestly. It has to be.
What about underrated?
Or Daisy Jones and the Six, I kind of think is like overrated a little bit. But I feel like it's just like not my preference of like what I want in my books. And that's why I like haven't read a whole lot of Taylor Jenkins Reid. So, what were you saying?
Underrated for you.
Most underrated. I wonder, can you sort on Goodreads like by Goodreads rating? Or like by worst? You
can. I don't know if it sorts it by worst.
Average rating, and then I have to like scroll all the way down to the bottom, right?
I would guess so.
Okay, give me a second. And then I'll have to see if I also rated it poorly or not. Okay, the lowest average rating for my Goodreads. That cannot be true. This is saying 3.84 is the lowest average rating I've read on Goodreads. Anyways,
yeah.
The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle is what it is. And I gave it 3 stars, although, yeah, I just gave it 3 stars. It was just like a lot. That book is a lot.
I liked it.
It's confusing. I appreciated it, but it was also just like so long and so mind-bending that I just was like left confused at the end of the day.
I just remembered a book that I was going to say was overrated for me. I have 2. Then She Was Gone and Sharp Objects.
Oh, wait, this is definitely not sorted by...
I feel like Goodreads doesn't do that very well. Like, the technology is not very good at that.
3.36, 99% mine, but I also rated it pretty low, so...
Then She Was Gone, I just will never understand the hype that it gets because it's arguably, like, one of the most hyped domestic thrillers that I see people putting out there. And I'm like, what was thrilling about it? Like, you read it, and I won't give any spoilers, but, like, you read it, you read literally one sentence, you're like, oh, like, you know what happens. Pretty close to the beginning of the book. And then it just gets revealed, like, by the end of the book. And I was like, well, then I already knew that. I thought it was obvious. Like, you just did such obvious foreshadowing. I'm all for, like, a little foreshadow. But there's moments where you're like, oh, well, obviously, they want me to know that. In the 7-Year Slip, there was, like, foreshadowing where it was like, oh, I'm supposed to pick up on that and know that. But, and then She Was Gone. It was like, well, clearly I wasn't supposed to, like, pick up on that enough to know that that was the twist. You want to save the twist for the end. Anyway, I wouldn't recommend the book. And then Sharp Objects, I hated, felt gross after reading it. Just like, ew. Would not recommend it.
Makes me so interested in what that book is because I hear that and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You should read it and give it a shot. I could see Misery also being one that I would say is overrated just because it's one of like Stephen King's most highly acclaimed books, I feel, and it was like just okay for me.
Someone said that this isn't like a hot take, but they said they walk around / pace while they're reading helps them remember things better. We've been doing that more since we've got Vegas. Because, like, sometimes if he's in one of his moods and if all I want to do is, like, try and read a little bit of whatever book I'm reading, then I need to, like, stand up and walk around so he doesn't, like, bite my book.
Yeah.
So I've started to get a little bit better at that.
Keep doing those because I think that's all I have for my list of stuff. So we'll just finish off with your guys' input.
Someone said, we already kind of talked about this, when my book is getting to an exciting part, I slam my hands down on the parts I haven't read yet.
Yeah.
You have to, like, control yourself.
How often
like,
when you have a book or when you're reading a book, do you have, like, a visible reaction, whether it's, like, shock with a plot twist or, like, if you're reading a romance and you're, like, kicking your feet, like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. Like, how often, or can you think of, like, a time when you had, like, a reaction most recently? Because when I was reading 7 Year Slip, I was, like, opening my mouth, like, this is so cute. Like, just...
I know with Love, theoretically, there was at least one point, which I can't even remember what part, where I, like, was actively, like, put my hand, like, on something to, like, avoid any, like, spoiler. I don't even know if it ended up being what I thought it was going to be or not, because I don't remember the part that I was doing that for.
Interesting. For Love, theoretically, I cannot think about what that would be.
It was either that or 7 Year Slip, but in my mind it was, like, recent, so then I would think it was that one.
Are you someone who likes to try and guess plot points in books?
This person said, and I honestly, hold on. So this person said, the ending of Love in Other Words is 10,000% more toxic than Every Summer After.
Toxic?
Yeah. It's like, I know the endings of both books, but I'm also like, I feel like for, like, Every Summer After, as much as I enjoyed that book, I also was like, the ending, I was like, I don't know how I feel about the ending. And then Love in Other Words is like, I love that book, so I disagree with them. Hot take, reading in the morning is better than reading at night. To be honest.
How do you read in the morning?
Huh?
How do you read in the morning?
We've been reading in the morning because Vegas is making us get up so early.
I haven't been reading in the morning.
If I can, sometimes I have been. Which, to be honest, it's kind of nice. Or, like, you read sometimes in the morning in the hot tub.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you just are like, who would have thought I'd be reading in the morning? You don't have as much time to read, usually, but I feel like it's...
Sometimes it just makes me sad because I want to keep reading, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go now.
Yeah. This person sent in a lot at the end. They said, if the male main character is blonde, I'm closing the book.
If a male main character is described as being blonde, it's in one ear out the other. He is however I picture him.
Yeah. They also said watching TikTok edits after reading a book is a must-do. I don't do that often, but I feel
Fourth
like...
Wing has been showing up on my For You page, like, against my will. It is so
Are there,
funny.
like, common people who, like... ACOTAR, like, a little bit popped up on my For You page.
It's a lot of fan art.
Mm.
Do you ever look at fan casting of people in books?
Yeah.
To, like, picture it? Do you do it before or, like, while you're reading or after you're reading?
It'd probably be after, I feel like.
I usually do after. I will say during 7 Year Slip, I was like, I wanted to, like, picture these characters so vividly because I was enjoying it so much. I tried to look it up, like, during.
People on the covers is ugly.
I also agree.
I hard agree. If it's real people, I like the little...
Oh yeah,
some cartoon drawings.
Some people hate like that.
I know,
like the romance has like the cartoon drawings. I like
that's my classic. Like, what else are we doing for? I know Colleen Hoover's like aren't like that, but to be honest, I don't love her covers. So,
like Abby Jimenez's covers and like Emily Henry's covers, I love them.
Me too. Checking Goodreads reviews before buying a book. I do that.
It's a 100,
10 out of 10 times. And if it's a romance with less than 4 stars, I have a hard time saying I'm going to pick it up because...
So, like, it should not be that hard for, like, a nice, easy romance to get 4 stars.
Yeah.
Unless
especially if it's,
everyone's
like,
rating system is so off, but...
Especially if it's, like, a new release, because then, like, you know the people who are, like, most highly anticipating that book or that author's release, like, are going to probably, like, skew it towards the upper end.
So, if it's less than that already... fat chance of me picking it up.
That's mostly it.
So we'll finish off with Megan's Holy Trinity.
let me at least go to my 5 stars because I feel like it has to be.
Do you think it would be another romance?
See, that's like
something else?
I kind of
with
with
like
like
your
Holy
Holy
Trinity. I like
be...
don't want it to be, but I feel like I don't know what other rating I have for like 5 stars. That's like a different genre. I feel like I might do The Summer of Broken Rules because I do really highly enjoy that book. It's YA. It's a little different. I also feel like that'd be another one where I'd be like, oh, it's worth going to like reread that book to see what I still think of it.
All right. Well,
so it'd be Project Hail Mary, Happy Place, Summer of Broken Rules.
There you have it. Hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. We love doing these book-related episodes, and we like when you guys request them.
If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Comment down below any of your thoughts. I said subscribe already. If you're listening, make sure you rate our podcast wherever you're listening.
And we will see you guys or talk to you guys next Thursday. Bye.
Bye.